Gentlemen, today I'm going to look at how the modern society castrated masculinity. We're going to look at the mechanisms through which the blue-pilled man was created and what that actually means. Who is a blue-pilled man? What does he believe? How does he conduct himself? That's what we're going to look at. So I'm going to start with a joke. One of the things that we observe in the red pill community is that comedians, they enjoy the greatest latitude when it comes to conveying uncomfortable truths. Comedians can make jokes without being called toxic, misogynist, and so on, because, it's a joke. So comedians normally dish out very uncomfortable truths. So men lie the most. The Chris Rock, who is a famous comedian, he said, but he added quickly that, but women tell the biggest lies. So the crowd laughed, but laughter often conceals the truth. So Chris Rock added, a man can lie that I was at Tony's house, but a woman will lie to you that this is your son. So we are going to begin there, at the point where laughter meets silence. Every generation of men inherits a myth that love is pure, that women are faithful, that being a good man is going to guarantee you peace and happiness. It will give you a happy marriage if you're a decent man. But as Friedrich Nietzsche once said, he said that people sometimes don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. So we are going to look at what are the lies that the modern society has been telling men. When I'm a Gen Xer, at the time when I was getting married, the people who are ahead of me, there was a very common saying that married men would easily dish out. They will tell you, happy wife, happy life. And I'll probably give you other examples in another podcast. So they'll tell you that Nietzsche said that sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. So we were raised in illusions, in classrooms, in pulpits, and through love songs. We were told that women love unconditionally and that men must prove their worth through sacrifice. Stories like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Rapunzel, and so on, those were stories that primed us to become better males, as you'll see shortly. We were told that virtue, loyalty, and financial stability, they make a man desirable. Okay? For those of you who've not seen my earlier video about the difference between being desirable and being attractive, being loyal, being virtuous, being kind, and having financial disability does not make you desirable. They make you attractive. So look around today. The same virtues that once defined manhood, they now make men expendable. The good man, the dutiful, the faithful, and endlessly giving man, he is now a relic in the museum of failed masculinity. So let's dissect the myth of the faithful man. For many of us who grew up in the late 80s, 1990s, and the 2000s, monogamy was a gospel. We had R&B musicians singing about being a one-woman man, people like John Legend and so on. It was really considered to be romantic. And the girls also told us that that's what they wanted, a man who is faithful. We listened to preachers say that men who stray are dogs. And women, of course, also say the same thing. We were told that women only cheat if the man is really, really bad. So we try to be good. We try to be faithful. We try to be enough. We try to be good providers. But this moral conditioning hid a brutal truth from us. And that is that men were taught fidelity, while women were taught options. So from childhood, boys are disciplined. You're told, don't look at girls that way. Respect girls. But the girls, however, they are told, don't settle. Know your worth. And by the time they reach adulthood, one gender is taught restraint and the other is taught discernment. And therein lies the quiet tragedy of modern manhood. Men are raised to please. Women are raised to choose. So we want to look at the training and the schooling of the blue-pilled boy. Dr. Warren Farrell, who is a psychologist who wrote The Boy Crisis, he argues that modern education and media have systematically softened boys, discouraging their natural competitiveness and drive. Schools celebrate obedience over leadership, cooperation over courage, and emotional vulnerability over discipline. Of course, part of this is because 80 to 100%, so not 100, 80 to 90%, let me say 70 to 80% of the teachers in the lower primary and the initial stages of education are women. So they teach young boys feminine values. And then you also have the media. From sitcoms, media and Hollywood go together. From sitcoms to cartoons, the father is often a bumbling fool, is portrayed as a bumbling fool. You know about Homer Simpson, the one who acted The Simpsons. We know about Peter Griffin. While the mother is portrayed as wise, patient center of the family. This subtle narrative seeps into the psyche of young boys. And they learn that to be loved, I must serve. To be accepted, I must comply. Because, if you look at the Simpson, he's being sent around like an errand boy. He's always making mistakes and apologizing. And he does what his wife tells him. This is where we derive the word simp from. Okay? He's a man who respects women. He does not respect himself. So by adolescence, this conditioning matures into what Rollo Tomassi calls the feminine imperative. That is a cultural machinery that teaches men to prioritize women's happiness above their own mission. And that's why we teach men to become their mental point of origin. That's a big lesson in Unplugged, and Rollo Tomassi also teaches that. So, gentlemen, this is what we call the blue pill conditioning. Of course, the metaphor blue pill is borrowed from the Matrix, where Neo is told to choose either between the red pill and the blue pill. And the red pill represents the spirit of the truth, and the blue pill represents comforting lies. That's why my book is also titled From Comforting Lies to Cold Hard Truths. Gentlemen, if you're enjoying this video, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it. When you subscribe, you'll always be notified when I drop new content. Also, when you like and share, you help this channel to grow, and more importantly, you help other men to discover the tools that they need to level up. So remember, when one man rises, we all rise. Now let's get back to the video. So the blue pill conditioning is a sweet, comforting illusion that if you love her enough, provide enough, and stay faithful enough, she will stay. But she will not, unfortunately. Not because she's evil, but because she is human and she's female. We'll touch a bit of female nature as we continue. Human beings follow incentives, not ideals. So we want to unpack the psychological trap of conditioning. In psychological terms, this conditioning is operant. And operant conditioning is in my book Unplugged 5. Unplugged 5 is over here with the light blue cover. So B.F. Skinner, he showed that behavior reinforced by reward becomes habitual. And society rewarded compliant men. These are the men who apologized quickly. They avoided conflict and they said yes when they wanted to say no. And of course, this is aligning with happy wife, happy life ideology. But the same society punished men who were assertive, and it labeled them as toxic, controlling, or emotionally unavailable. Stoicism is nowadays what they call emotionally unavailable. Men were trained to equate love with service, not leadership. And the more they gave, the less they were respected. The African saying goes that he who bends too much to a woman is going to break his own back. This is why I talk about backbone. Men who bend so much to their women, they don't have backbone. They cannot stand up to their women. They cannot handle conflict because they are pussy whipped. They are afraid they'll be denied pussy. Some of them are even beaten by their wives. So the blue-pilled man, he bends until he becomes spineless. He mistakes peace for silence and compromise for love. He thinks that compliance will buy him loyalty, not realizing that loyalty cannot be purchased. It must be inspired. So, gentlemen, let's look at the evolutionary backstory of our current circumstances. Evolution, as we know, never promised equality. Evolution promised survival. Throughout human history, men died for resources and women selected for stability. The anthropologist David Bass tells us in his book, Evolution of Desire, that women evolved to seek security and superior genes, and they do this often simultaneously. In ancestral times, a woman would marry the stable man who provided food and shelter, and this is what we call the better provider. But they will secretly mate with a strong, dominant male. And this is the guy that we refer to as the alpha seed. It's because of this that the aristocrats will have eunuchs working in their palaces, the castrated boys. Because most of these servants, they had the physique, the musculature that made women feel desirous towards them. So this dual strategy of women, it's called the dual mating theory. And it explains why women can love a man and still cheat with another. These are some of the things our fathers did not tell us. That's why I've titled my Unplugged series as such. That women want two things at the same time. They want resources, but they also want the alpha seed. So today, modernity has removed survival constraints, but not instinct. The instincts remain, except they're dressed in high heels and Wi-Fi. A 2019 study by the American Association of Family Lawyers, it established that women initiate divorce 70 to 80% of the time. And among college-educated career women, the number rises to 90%. Why? It's because modern women no longer need men for survival. They only need men for fulfillment or validation. And when a man's usefulness expires, emotionally or financially, she upgrades. So what we see is that oftentimes, once the respect is gone, so does the relationship. And of course, girls are getting more educated now. They are getting more jobs and they are earning more money. That is why we are saying by 2030, we are going to have what is called the post-marriage era. Future generations will look at marriage the same way we look at witchcraft. They will not be able to make sense of this thing people are calling marriage. So let's look at the betrayal of the provider script. We are told that if you are a good provider, you're going to keep your family together. Most blue-pilled men, they cling to the provider script. They believe that financial provision guarantees loyalty. And yet, as many men in Nairobi, Lagos, New York, London, everywhere have learned, provision alone does not earn you loyalty. It may earn you resentment, not devotion. So there's a 2020 Pew research that showed that women in developed nations now out-earn men in 28% of households. But the paradox is this. As women's income rises, their satisfaction with their partners declines. Because emotional hypergamy, the drive to look up to one's partner, is hardwired. Women want men they can look up to. They want men who earn more than them, men who are educated than them, men who are stronger than them, and so on. A man who becomes a subordinate in his own home loses the attraction that drew her in the first place. She starts to despise what she once admired. And that's why we tell guys, you have to take the burden of performance into perpetuity. And so the faithful husband, the one who thought that he'd ring-fenced his marriage by being good, he wakes up one day to cold sheets and colder silence. As an Akan proverb says, the hen does not forget the cock that wakes her at dawn. But in modern relationships, the hen has learned to wake herself, and the cock no longer matters. So, gentlemen, let's briefly look at the rise of female liberty and the decline of male authority. When women entered the workforce, freedom entered their hearts, and the hierarchy of dependence shifted. Freedom is intoxicating. It is also destabilizing, particularly for institutions like marriage. So what the Industrial Revolution did to labor, feminism did to relationships. It unbundled dependence. Esther Vilar tells us in The Manipulated Man that women who were once dependent on men for survival, they perfected the art of emotional control as a survival mechanism. But once economic independence arrived, that mechanism did not vanish. It evolved. So today, men face the illusion of equality, where the social contract of duty remains, but the reciprocity has faded. You are still expected to pay for debts, protect her, listen to her, support her dreams, and at the same time, you're supposed to be a partner. Okay? You're no longer the leader of the household. Now you are a partner. So this is the challenge that many men are grappling with today. You are a co-applicant on a mortgage. You are a co-parent in the court of law. You are a co-defendant in the divorce settlement. The Zulu say that the axe forgets, but the tree remembers. Men have forgotten the price of surrender. Women remember the power it gave them. And they are not going to give it up without a fight. How do you know that a man is blue-pilled? So I'm going to talk about the symptoms of blue-pilled. The modern blue-pilled man is polite, he is self-sacrificing, and is perpetually confused. He cannot make a decision, he's indecisive because he's afraid of upsetting or of making a mistake. He has not established trust with himself. He has a university degree, he has a stable job, and yet he has no sense of purpose. He loves deeply, but he never receives it back in equal measure. He asks, what have I done wrong? Of course, he's asking his wife, who is always sulking. The answer, he believed the wrong things. He believed that love conquers all. He believed that women love men the way men love women. He believed that being nice was enough. But niceness is not virtue. Niceness is weakness disguised as morality. A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very dangerous man who has it under voluntary control. The blue-pilled man is harmless, and therefore he is disrespected. He has never learned the language of boundaries, the grammar of dominance, or the poetry of self-respect. He does not realize that women cannot love men they do not respect. And they cannot respect men who place them above themselves. As we say in Africa, a man who ties his goat too close to the forest should not cry when it disappears. The blue-pilled man, he has tied his worth to her approval, and he watches his dignity vanish. So, over time, men are becoming awake, and they are getting to realize the red pill. Every man has a moment of awakening. when their lies crumble and he sees the world as it is, not as he was told it should be. And this is what we call red pill moments. For some, it's a divorce. For others, it's a paternity test. For others still, it's simply the cold, quiet absence of appreciation. Others get red pill when their wives slap them or disrespect them, or when you catch her in bed with another man. In that moment, something ancient stirs in him. The warrior, the builder, the philosopher. And he begins to see, as Carl Jung once said, that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This awakening is not bitterness, it is clarity. So the red pill is clarity that we come to once our illusions of the comforting lies is shattered. So it's a birth of sovereignty. It is a realization that your value as a man comes not from what you give, but from what you become. So a red pill man begins to build, the man who is awakened. He begins to rebuild his body because strength is a language. He begins to build his mind because knowledge is armor. And he begins to pursue his mission because purpose is magnetism. And that's why the guys, you cannot say that you are unplugged if you have a pot belly, you are out of shape, you don't read books, and you don't have a purpose. You must have those three things if you want to claim you are unplugged or you are red-pilled. The awakened man learns that love is not given to men who beg for it. It is earned by the men who lead themselves. So, to every man listening to this, understand this. You are born not to orbit around women. You are born to build worlds. Reclaim your time, your focus, your discipline. Do not invest in relationships that do not honor your mission. Remember, women don't care about your struggles. They wait at the finish line and they bang the winners. And that's why men chase championships and women chase champions. So be the winner, not for their validation, but for your own sovereignty. They say that the lion does not turn around when a small dog barks. Stay focused, stay dangerous, and stay sovereign. So, brothers, the world has taught you to be tame. It has taught you that you need to be nice. But the soul of man was never meant to live in a cage. Seneca, an ancient philosopher, said that no man is free who is slave to his body. So I tell you, no man is free who is a slave to another's approval. If you've ever felt betrayed by the myths of love, by the false promises of reciprocity, by a world that shames your strength and rewards your weakness, you're not alone. The journey of sovereignty begins with awareness. The next step is courage. And so I ask you, what moments opened your eyes? What lies did you once believe about love, loyalty, and manhood? Share your reflections in the comment section below. Let's build a brotherhood of men who refuse to be tamed. Men who are reclaiming their power, redefining masculinity, and walking sovereign. Because as the African proverb reminds us, the lion does not tell his story, the hunter will. So get unplugged, find your purpose, become full stack fortified men. And I'll see you on the next one.